Hey there, so in this video, been a while since I've done a video on this channel. So in this one I'm going to be talking about when I grew up watching wrestling and what wrestlers were wrestling at that time. Um, so I started watching wrestling around the time I would say, I want to say 7.5, not quite 8, almost that. So I started watching it around late 94 or the beginning of 95 when it was the new generation. And at that time, they had wrestlers like Shawn Michaels, Diesel, uh, Razor Ramon, 123 Kid. Trying to think of other wrestlers at that time. They had, but yeah, Yokozuna, Mabel, the Smoking Guns. So yeah, I started watching it around that time. Um, and I found, like, I don't know, for me, I can explain, for me, but I'm not sure about other people. But for some reason, it's like I found when I started watching wrestling, I found it was like around that time I really, really enjoyed it. Really enjoyed it. You always remember, like, usually around the time you start watching, for any wrestling fan, you probably remember what wrestlers were wrestling at that time when you started watching wrestling. And yeah, I remember that. That was great. And so many great wrestlers. I believe Bam Bam Bigelow was wrestling then in WWF. Trying to think of others. Bob Holly, I believe. Trying to think of other ones. So many others. Um, and then yeah, that was great. I because back I believe it was back then or not long after that, 96. Remember getting the paper when you could buy the pay-per-views and watch so many of them. Um, great times. And now with wrestling, the only wrestler I know would be probably Rey Mysterio. Um, I believe he's still wrestling, if I'm not mistaken. And all the other wrestlers that I grew up watching pretty much, I would say, retired from wrestling, like Bret Hart. Trying to think of other ones. Pretty much are retired from wrestling. Then later on, I would say later on, or not long after, probably not long after I started watching when it was WWF back then. Um, and then I got into WCW. And around that time, I believe Randy Savage, Macho Man Randy Savage, joined WCW. He left, I believe, WWF around, I want to say September, October 94, around that time, I want to say. And then Hulk Hogan left WWF around 93. And and Lex Luger was still in the WWF when I was watching it, and I believe I think he might have left WWF around September 95, I want to say. So many wrestlers I found were leaving WWF to go to WCW. So quite a bit were leaving and we're going to WCW. And then I remember watching when it later on became around I would say the Attitude Era around like 98. And that was it. I really enjoyed that one too because Steve Austin was kind of like he had the title. He won the title from Shawn Michaels at WrestleMania 14 and pretty much headlining a lot of pay-per-views. And I think it was like him and probably Vince McMahon were having feuds like, and yeah, I really enjoyed that era as well. Um, And then they had, The Undertaker, Kane later on. Kane was there in 98. And then him and The Undertaker also were kind of having a feud as well. And really, really enjoyed that. And then I'd say around the time I probably stopped watching wrestling would have been, I want to say probably 2007, 8, maybe around that time. And like I said, with today's wrestling, with WWE and that, very rare that I watch it. And trying to think of other, very rare. I don't really watch it that often, but so yeah, let me know down in the comments. Oh, and also before that, I did get into EC. If anybody knows anything about ECW, I kind of got into that a little around maybe 2000. I want to say, which was quite different from WCW and WWF at that time, and yeah, it was, but my top, I would have to say, like, if my two top ones would have at that time would have been WWF and WCW. And yeah, like I said, remember buying the pay-per-views, for WWF, like way back in the day, like around 96, 98, around that time. But yeah, today, like I said, I don't know much wrestlers. The only one that I would know probably would be Rey Mysterio, and I believe Triple H is still there, but not wrestling that much, like working behind the scenes. And there might be some other wrestlers that that are, but they don't wrestle anymore. So yeah, so comment down below. Let me know when you started watching wrestling and what were your favorite wrestlers, and hopefully you enjoyed this. Like, it's been a while since I did any videos, so I've been trying to think of different ideas. So if you have any ideas, put it down in the comments. And thank you very much for everyone of you supporting this channel. Hopefully you enjoyed it, and bye.